What if entire civilizations left behind thousands of words, but humanity still has absolutely no idea what they mean? So let's jump right into this. First, we have the book that made the NSA give up. Picture this, a 240-page manuscript written in an alphabet that doesn't exist anywhere else on Earth, illustrated with plants that don't exist on Earth either, plus diagrams of naked women bathing in green liquid piped through bizarre plumbing systems. This is the Voynich, the manuscript, named after the Polish book dealer Wilfred Voynich, who bought it in 1912 from the Jesuit college in Italy. Carbon dating places the vellum between 1404 and 1438, so this is genuinely medieval. It's not some Victorian hoax cooked up to sell books. This is real. Here's where it gets absolutely bone-chilling. During World War II, actual codebreakers from Britain's Bletchley Park and later the NSA, the same people who cracked Enigma and Japanese naval codes, well, they took a serious crack at this thing. They thought, we could figure this out. But they weren't able to. They used every statistical trick and they weren't able to crack the code. They failed completely. In 2023, researchers ran modern AI language models against it. You would think AI would be able to crack this. ChatGPT, what does this say? Hoping machine learning could find patterns that humans would miss. But it failed. It currently sits in Yale's Beinecke Rare Book Library behind climate-controlled glass. And honestly, I'm not making this up. Some scholars now generally think that it might be just an elaborate medieval prank designed to fool a rich buyer. But can you imagine spending over 600 years fooling the entire scientific community with what might just actually be gibberish? Next up, we have the script buried under its own successor. In the 1900s, an archaeologist named Arthur Evans was digging at the palace of Knossos on Crete when he uncovered nearly 1,400-year-old clay tablets covered in symbols nobody recognized, tucked away in what looked like a palace archive rooms. He called it Linear A. Now here's the twist. Decades later, a related script called Linear B, found at many of the same sites, got fully decoded in 1952 by a British architect named Michael Ventris, who, get this, who wasn't even a professional linguist. He cracked it as basically as a side hobby. He picked it up, he's like, I think I know this code. Linear B turned out to be an early form of Greek, used for palace bookkeeping. So naturally, everyone assumed Linear A, its older cousin, would fall next using the same methods. But it didn't. Linear A represents a completely different non-Greek language from the Minoan civilization, one that doesn't cleanly match any known language family. And over 70 years after Linear B fell, we still can't read the mother scripts that led directly into a language we already cracked. That would be absolutely terrifying. If you were a linguist who was dedicated their entire lives or your entire career to it, only to watch the finish line move every single time and you feel like you're not even getting closer. Now we have burned by the very missionaries who found it. On Easter Island, the Rapa Nui people carved wooden tablets in a script called Rongorongo, using a bizarre reverse Bostrofidin style, meaning you can read one line left to right, physically flip the tablet upside down, and read the next line right to left over and over again. Well, here's the horrifying part. When European missionaries arrived in the 1860s, they viewed the tablets as pagan idolatry tried to the island's old religious practices, and ordered most of them destroyed or burned as part of, converting the population. Well, today, only about 26 confirmed Rongorongo objects survived in museum collections worldwide. Scattered from Chile to Russia to Belgium, we may have physically destroyed the Rosetta Stone equivalent for an entire civilization's writing system. In the same decades, we are still learning to read it. Well, let me know in the comments down below if that doesn't make your blood boil a little bit, because it does for me. Okay, next up we have 4,000 seals, and we don't even know if it's language. The Indus Valley Civilization, one of the largest Bronze Age societies on Earth, stretching across modern-day Pakistan and northwest India, left behind 4,000 inscribed seals in tablets, many depicting animals like bulls alongside strings of symbols. But here's the problem. The average inscription is only about 5 symbols long. That's it. No long sentences, no royal decrees, no bilingual translation stone like Egypt got with the Rosetta Stone that lets scholars cross-reference Greek against hieroglyphics. Some researchers have gone as far as to argue the Manuscript might not encode spoken language at all. It could be a religious symbol, political emblems, or trade markings instead. Similar to how a crow or a skull and crossbones carries meaning without being a language. An entire civilization of millions of people, spanning centuries, and we can't even confirm whether the writing was actually writing. Now we have Cyprus's Bronze Age ghost script. Check this out. Cypro-Minoan script shows upon the island of Cyprus, starting way back 1550 BC, stretching onto clay tablets, cylinder seals, and even bronze objects. Researchers believed that it's actually the ancestors of a later script, the Cryptariot syllabary, and that scholars eventually did decipher and confirmed represented Greek. So we can read the child, but not the parent. Only about 250 Cairo-Minoan inscriptions have ever been found, and most are painfully short. Some are just a handful of characters scratched onto broken pottery shards. It's like finding a grandchild's diary, being told exactly who the grandchild is, and then being told you'll never meet the grandparent who started the family story in the first place. Now we have the oldest undeciphered writing system on Earth. Here is a big one. Proto-Elamites emerged in what's now southwestern Iran around 3200 BC, making it possibly the oldest ever recorded writing system that remains completely undeciphered. Potentially older than even the earliest readable cuneiform coming out of Mesopotamia. Over 1600 tablets have been excavated across multiple sites, mostly administrative and accounting records tracking goods, labor, and livestock from ancient Elam. The wild part is that the script seems to have no descendants. It just appears fully formed, gets used heavily for a couple hundred years across a wide region, and then vanishes without evolving into anything, that we can trace forward into later Elamite writing. I personally believe that there's an entire lost economic system, maybe even a lost bureaucracy with its own laws and taxes, buried in those tablets, and we're just staring at it, completely locked out. Alright, if you're enjoying this video so far, help support the channel by smashing the like button. It really helps most amazing stuff done. Now we have on this list, we can say the words, we just don't know what they mean. The Meroitic script comes from the kingdom of Kush in ancient Sudan, a powerful civilization that at one point in time even conquered and ruled over Egypt itself. Here's what makes it uniquely maddening, and we actually know the alphabet. It has 24 signs, both hieroglyphic and cursive versions, and thanks to parallels with Egyptian hieroglyphics, scholars figured out how to phonetically sound the words out over a century ago. Well, we can literally read it out loud, syllable by syllable, in a room full of people. We just have almost zero idea on what we're reading. We have no idea what it means because the underlying Meroitic language itself is an isolate with no confirmed living relatives, and only a small handful of words have ever been confidently translated. It's like being handed a phone with no name attached to it. You can dial it perfectly, you just don't know where on earth who's gonna answer it. Now we have the knots that might have been full novels. The Inca never developed a written script the way we typically understand it. Instead, they used kifu, elaborate systems of knotted colored cords, sometimes with hundreds of individual strings hanging off a single main cord. For decades, scholars assumed kifu were just accounting devices, tracking taxes, census data, and warehouse inventories across the empire. But newer research, including work analyzed knot spacing and color patterns, suggests some kifu may have encoded actual narrative information, stories, histories, even personal names. Here's the gut punch though. Spanish colonizers destroyed thousands of kifu in the 1500s as suspected pagan objects tied to Inca religion, burning them in organized purges. Today, only around 600 are known to survive in collections worldwide, and kifu really do contain narrative history the same way researchers now believe. We may have burned an entire library of Inca literature centuries ago and just called it strength. Okay, moving right along, one scholar claims he cracked it. Everyone says no though. The Mayan script, sometimes called Epi-Olmec, appears on the artifacts like the La Mahara stela, the large stone slab discovered in Veracruz, Mexico in 1986. Covered in over 400 glyphs alongside a carved figure, in the 1990s, a linguists named John Judson and Terence Kaufman published a proposed decipherment. Claims they've translated it as early as the Mesoamerican language related to the modern Mixozoic language. Well, here's where it gets messy. The academic community remains deeply split, with major critics arguing their translations doesn't hold up when tested against the actual symbol. Patterns of grammar, structure elsewhere on the stela. So officially this one sits in the bizarre limbo of maybe we have no idea what is actually on this thing. And honestly, that disagreement has been raging in academic journals for over 30 years. And finally, in our last spot, a single object never duplicated, printed 1700 years ago before the printing press. We're talking about the Phaistos disc, discovered in 1908, not too long ago, and it was located at the Minon Palace site of Phaistos on Crete. This fired clay disc is stamped, not carved, stamped, with 241 symbols arranged in continuous spiral running from the edge to the center, using individual hieroglyphic seals pressed into wet clay, and it was pressed one at a time before firing. This means whoever made this invented some sort of movable type of printing almost 1700 years before Gutenberg's printing press in Europe. And then, as far as we can tell, apparently never used the technique again. No other object like it has ever been found elsewhere in the world, on Crete or elsewhere. Not a similar symbol set, not a related artifact, not even a fragment of it. It is completely, utterly unique in the entire archaeological record. How absolutely horrifying is that? An entire printing technology invented just once, used exactly once, and then lost forever, with no one alive who remembered how or why.